Garden Gurus Live is brought to you by Garden Express and Troforte. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Troforte is the leading supplier of controlled release fertilisers and micronutrients, and it's committed to delivering environmentally friendly solutions for your garden. Each week we'll be giving away a Troforte prize pack valued at $250. Simply follow, like and comment the weekly code word on Troforte's Facebook page.
Well, hello. How are you going? I'm Trevor Cochran. Welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. It's a little early where I am at the moment. I've actually been sailing, believe it or not. I'm on one of the river systems in Portugal, and it is crazy hot in Europe at the moment, which is a bit of a warm-up for me, I suppose, for what we can expect this summer. But let's not just talk about what's happening with me anyway, because we're doing this so that we can share gardening tips, advice, etc. with you. And we've got a great program today. We have got so much going on. I will have Chloe Van Berkel joining me very soon with another amazing gardening offer from the team at Garden Express, who they just do some pretty cool things. And tell you what, we're just about at that moment in time, aren't we, where there's certain plants that now need to be in the soil. Talk to Chloe about that a bit further on. We've got some great prizes. It's a $50 for the best question, $50 voucher with Garden Express. Outside of that, there's also a $250, yes, you heard it, $250 Troforte, well, it's not a voucher, it's a hamper of all the goodies that Troforte produce, which will pretty much keep your garden fertilised pretty much for the next year or so. Now, of course, the whole idea of the program is that we're here to answer your questions. And whilst I might be removed from Australia just at the moment, I'm pretty switched on. But I've got to tell you, you need to tell me where you're from. So when you ask your question, what town, what state, really important, it makes such a big difference. We'll just talk about temperature for a while, because the weather impacts all of us when it comes to gardening. And let's take a look at the weather. Well, maybe I'll give you the rundown on Portugal. So the low overnight here where we are was around about 22 degrees. The high yesterday was 43, and there is a prediction this week that we will hit 50. Did you hear that correct? Yes, 50. It's crazy. It's crazy. And for many people over here, they've never seen temperatures this hot. So Europe is going through a massive heat wave. And I think there's a lot of work, a lot of sort of talk at the moment about how we can, I suppose, make sure that we are a little bit more prepared for extremes. And one of the things that everybody's talking about in Europe at the moment is adding, 50, Tracy, you're right, is adding more trees, because the more trees, the more shade, the less reflection of heat off the ground back into the atmosphere. And these are the things that are going to be a big challenge in the future if we don't have trees. I'll run through. Perth is a low of 8 and a high of 18 today. Melbourne low of 10 and a high of 16. I believe it's been very wet in Melbourne, so I might ask Chloe about that soon. Let's move. Brisbane, low of 8, a high of 27. Tassie, low of 7, high of 16. Low of 7 in Sydney and a high of 18, very similar to Perth at the moment. And yeah, there we go, hey. Adelaide, I should tell you. Adelaide, low of 8, high of 16. The only places it's going to be hot in Australia today is going to be Darwin and probably Cairns. So for everybody in far north Queensland, something to look forward to. But it's certainly still cool, and we're dealing with the opposite extreme to what obviously people are dealing with over here in southern Europe at the moment. So we are on the edge of what is about to be probably the best spring we've had in a long period of time in Australia. So get your questions in. Let's get answering, and I will start talking through them. No, I won't. You know what I'll do? I'll go to Chloe straight away. Good morning, Chloe, because you're online.
Good morning.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Well, it's afternoon here for us.
Well, of course
not
it
for you.
is. It's what, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Melbourne?
3 p.m. Yeah.
3 p.m. 3 p.m. See, this is it. It's 7 a.m. here, or 7:09 a.m. here in Portugal. We're on the edge actually of Spain at the moment. So, and the weird thing is, if I drive up the street about 2 minutes, the time will go to 8. Which is, it's a bit hard to sort of manage the time zones, but of course, it's like languages here. Everything moves and changes quite quickly.
Yeah, you can jump on a train or a bus and be in another country over there. So it's can be difficult to keep up with.
Chloe, how are you doing?
Really, really good. We are awesome here and ready for our dahlia and hippie season. So
I was going to say, speaking of hippies, how's your dad?
he's really good. He's becoming a lot more of a farmer these days, and he loves his time out on the tractor and less time here in the office. He's allowing me to grow, I guess, and find my feet within the business. And so he is having fun out in the soil and on his equipment and machines. So
it's really funny to watch him out on the farm. I've obviously been out there, and he's really in his element, isn't he? You know, like he just loves that environment. That's the place where it obviously it's his happy place.
Yeah, it really is. I think he's a lot like a kid when he gets to get out onto his tractor and it takes him back. So he definitely changes when you see him on his tractor out there.
That's for sure. I've seen that, and I've seen how happy it makes him. I've seen how magnificent the hippies are, but of course he's digging dahlias at the moment, isn't he?
He is. So we're almost we've almost finished digging the dahlias. They're on our drywall at the moment. So hopefully not too much longer before we launch our dahlia range as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. I know a lot of people are looking forward to us launching those.
That's fantastic. Well, that's a pretty exciting opportunity, but not the only one, because this is the time of the year to be getting a particular type of plant that I know, you know, people all over Australia, you know, they really want to get their hands on this. Not everybody can grow them. You do need to have the right conditions, but we're talking peonies, and you guys have got an amazing collection of them, right?
We do. So we have the herbaceous peonies, we have the tree peonies, we also have the Ito peonies, or Ito. So we've got a really big range of peony roses. Everybody loves them for their flower, that's for sure.
Yeah, so there's two primary types, right? So there's herbaceous, which they die back down. We're just showing some vision at the moment of the peonies themselves, and I'm half dressed. Sorry about that. Just that vision. Those peonies, they were in our office. They are amazing. They're just such stunning flowers. So herbaceous, and obviously also those perennial or tree peonies. They just produce the biggest, largest, most beautiful, you know, blooms, don't they?
They do, and you can sometimes get about 50 blooms on the one plant with those types as well. So
what's the trick? What's the trick to growing them?
So you want to find a full sun position. Herbaceous peonies like an area that gets at least 5 hours of full sun. Morning sun is best. Here in Australia, we have a really hot afternoon sun, so the 5 hours of morning sun, then you'll really get a good production of a display of flowers. And food. So they love a bit of chook poo or chook manure at planting time, and then go over with some lime. And I think the key is to not look at them like a bulb as such. They still need to be watered through their dormant period, because that's the time that they're actually putting down their roots and really putting the energy into beefing out their tuberous roots. So they still need to be watered and treated the same as if they were in full flower.
Okay, it's a really interesting plant in that it does need to get a slightly different bit of love, doesn't it? And when you put them in, a lot of people go, "Oh, first year, oh, it didn't produce masses of flower." But this plant is all about getting the root system established first. Once that's all set out and established, what happens thereafter is amazing. But that can take 2, 3, even 4 years.
It can. So I guess if you look at peonies, like you look at citrus or fruit trees, don't allow them to flower in the first year of planting so that they can focus all of their energy on, creating a really nice root system and beefing out the crown and creating those eyes instead of putting their energy into producing flowers for you. So I would cut off flowers in the first or even second year, and then making sure you're leaving the crown undisturbed, forever if you can, but I wouldn't start dividing or lifting your crown or rhizome for at least maybe 4 or 5 years.
Wow. Okay, well, I've got to be honest, I took me probably 2 years in my garden in Perth, which is a very hot, dry climate, to actually get the plants to a stage where I sort of felt like, actually, I think we're going to get some pretty decent flowers. And I think this year will be the year that we get flowers. So that's 3 years down the line from ordering them from you, going in the ground, and then obviously setting them up. In some situations, it may not be ideal to actually have them in the ground. How do they go in pots?
They're not well known as a great one for pots. You'll get a more fibrous root system. So therefore you won't really produce a lot of flowers. So it's not impossible. It's just not ideal for them.
Yeah. So this is a plant, find the right spot in the garden.
Yeah, a nice spot in your garden or a really big pot.
Yeah. All right. Well, if people want to give this a go, I would imagine, I know that they're not an easy plant to get your hands on. So you guys have obviously done the hard yards, got some either growing or you managed to get your hands on some. Tell me about the different types you've got.
So we have the 3 types, but for today's Guru special, we have the herbaceous peony in a collection. So our grower is my uncle. My uncle's name is Greg Van Berkel, and he pretty much is next door neighbours with us here in Monbulk. So we purchase off him and then divide and cut up here in Monbulk. So the ones we have in the collection, you'll get 4 plants.
Right.
They're herbaceous peonies. I might show you a couple of rhizomes if I can.
Oh, wow.
So this is an example of one of the peonies in the collection. So each one of these pink spikes is an eye. We call them eyes. And that is
a growth bud.
The plant will come out.
Yeah.
When you go to plant, you probably just want to go about 1 inch under the ground.
Okay, so not too deep.
Not too deep. You will put a lot of stress on the rhizome to have, to find.
Yeah, to grow.
So just 1 inch is fine. And then really feeding them with, blood and bone or manure at the time of planting. So when we send out a rhizome, we do like to have a minimum of 2 to 3 eyes. But the rhizome shape can change quite drastically with varieties. So in the same collection, you have a brand new variety for us, and that one is Pink Twinkle. So it's a much smaller one than before, but still has at least 3 eyes on it. That's the most important aspect of the
variety. So tell me, they'll come packaged in sawdust or there you go.
Yeah, so they'll come packaged like that with a nice moist medium around them. To keep them healthy. And we always freshly pack as well, so that they're always fresh and healthy when they come.
Awesome. So they arrive, put them into the ground straight away. It's got to be in a sunny spot, good soil, probably good moisture, particularly through the I would imagine through the hot summer period. They need to be protected, so it's more about consistency and moisture in the soil.
Yeah, so consistency, and you would be watering them through the summer, and during the winter you probably just want to substitute any lack of rainfall. But you still do want to keep them watered through the winter time, through their dormant period, like I said. And I would be you've got planting time up until mid-spring, so I would be jumping on and purchasing the peonies as soon as possible, because you've got until about mid-spring before it starts warming up, and then they really need to be in the ground.
Now, I know Uncle Greg's next door, and you can look over the fence and see how many he's got in the ground, but there's not ever that many of these things. They're always, it's always a shortage of demand. People are going to need to get in early. Have you got a special deal for Garden Gurus Live viewers?
We do. So we have 4 plants in a collection. It is 30% off, and it was $57.20, and today for the Gurus it's $40 for the 4 plants. So that's $10 a rhizo, which is really, really good.
$40. That is incredible. That's a great deal. Can I place my order with you now?
Absolutely.
Terrific. All right. Well, I'm going to do that because that's a red hot deal. So $40 for 4.
$40 for 4, and all named individual varieties. So they're not mixed. You'll know exactly what you're getting and delivered to your door.
I can't believe it. That's the great thing about your business. I know that Dad's out digging and Rowan's out sort of with the pencil and pen at the moment, working out the next best deal on the next thing that you guys have got coming through. But you're a family business, and I think it's a really important thing to emphasize. We're not talking about some giant internet, company or anything. You guys are out there. You're all hands-on. It's a family business, making sure that Australians get really good quality plants that perform really well, but more importantly, plants that are often quite rare and unusual. In this case, peonies are not a common thing, so to be able to get your hands on them, and best of all, as we've talked about before, but they can shop 24/7, can't they? It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, and ultimately delivered direct to your door.
That's right. That's
Chloe,
right.
That's awesome. That is a great deal. Could you do us a favour? Put some to one side for me, and then can you get a good deal together for next week? Because I'd like you to join us again next week.
Yeah, I can do that. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That'd be awesome. That's great. Thanks for looking after us. It's always good to chat, but always fascinating to see what the next cool, interesting plant is that you guys might be able to make available.
We have plenty of those coming up, so stay tuned.
I've seen a little bit of what's planned, so it's pretty exciting. I agree. Thanks, Chloe. Have a great day, hey? Thanks,
Trev. You too.
All right. We'll see you when I get back to the real world. Oh, wow. I tell you what, that's a pretty good deal, actually. They're so hard to get your hands on. So, and to go back to, I'm sort of thinking about the roots that you've just seen here, but when you see them in flower, they are just spectacular. So, and as Chloe mentioned, they've got the 3 different types. So, somebody's asked, I think Tracy asked about whether this includes the tree ones. Well, jump on their website and check it out. It's gardenexpress.com.au. They have everything that you will need. Speaking of things that you need, you do need some gardening advice, and I have a lot going on here. So I'm going to go to our very first question. And our first question is actually from WA today, which is fantastic. It's Susie in Warnbro. She's, I'm pretty sure I got that right. Yeah, in Warnbro. She was picking some cabbage from the garden last night and saw a massive rat very close to your garden bed. You began spiraling and panicking to see whether the rat was eating your cabbages and if you should wash your cabbages more thoroughly. That's a good question. Or abandon them. There are holes there, and there are some sections of the leaf missing. Suspect it's caterpillars. Believe I've seen eggs on them, but how can I be sure no rats are munching on your produce? It's a pretty difficult thing to control, to be quite honest. Rats are a significant problem out there. There is no doubt about it. What we're seeing at the moment across Australia is a plague of rats, particularly in the cities, and the impact can be usually fruit, where they'll get in and eat the inside of fruit out. So we need to control that, and the probably the most effective controls are baits. The downside to baits are poisoned rats coming in contact with our pets or wildlife, and so you do need to be very, very careful. There are stations where if there's a rat nearby and it goes into the station to find food, it will be contained within that, and that's probably the ideal scenario. So have a look at that. The old-fashioned traps, they still work. They worked for Grandma and Granddad, and they'll work for us today as well. But staying on top of rat colonies is a big challenge, and if you don't, you'll start to see produce go missing because they need food and they will eat everything. So yeah, Tracy did ask about the peonies, I should say, and whether they are actually trees. They're large shrubs, Tracy, and they're magnificent shrubs. And yes, they look fantastic as they grow during the warmer season, but they go dormant during the winter, which is something that we should have mentioned. So really good. Now, you also asked a question, Tracy, about worm farms. They're almost full. Any idea on how to get the worms out to put in another box? We'll get another box, transfer the worms across into that box, put some food on top, maybe a bit of newspaper wet over the top of that, and they'll go and they'll eat that food. In the meantime, all the goodies that are in the other box, you can empty into your garden and you can start a new box. So you can end up with 2 boxes. And that's the great thing about worm farms. They just keep going, and really you'll find your populations of worms will boom across the 2 if they've got more room. So you can really double your numbers in a very short period of time. It's not too difficult. Okay, let's keep moving along. Hi, Leah. How's travelling life? Well, a lot of people will look at my job and say, "Oh, you lucky duck! You are able to travel," and I'm very fortunate to travel. But to put some context into that travel, it took us 30 hours to get ourselves to Portugal. We've been doing, for the best part, solid 10 to 12-hour days, pulling together the filming for the next series of Explore TV, which what I'm doing is I'm actually cruising the River of Gold. The Douro runs all the way through the Douro Valley, and it's just magnificent country. It's the wine country here in Portugal. It's quite a harsh environment. It can be quite dry, and as I've just mentioned, 50-degree days. And I was thinking, this is climate change and a terrible extreme and everything else. And then talking to a chap in one of the vineyards a couple of days ago, he was saying, no, we had 52 last year. So it's a little hard to fathom in your mind how to deal with temperatures that are so high. They don't mind it because it stresses the grapes, and when the grapes are stressed, the flavors are richer. And the same argument will go for apples. So, the dark-skinned apples, and at the moment, the big one, the new one that's almost black really, is Bravo. That they're so good for us. Within that skin are a whole bunch of flavonoids, phytochemicals that the plant produces. It's triggered by the intensity of it is triggered by the extreme sun. The interesting thing is when we consume them, they have all sorts of benefits for us. And there's a great body of research that I think we've talked about before, but that the Royal Perth Hospital Research Centre did over 10 years with women. And the biggest killer of women in Australia, and probably worldwide, I would think, is hypertension. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it's not always because of your husband or your partner. Often it's it's just part of life, and that can cause strokes, heart attacks. See, high blood pressure is not good for you. So these things are a real worry. What they found was of a research group, and I believe it was around 10,000 people, that the women that had a dark red-skinned apple every day dramatically by 70 or 80% reduced their risk of death through hypertension or through these kinds of illnesses. So hopefully you're eating an apple a day, because I think there's real proof now that an apple a day does keep the doctor away. You can see behind me the sun's coming out, and I'll just show you this. I don't know whether you can really see, but I'm actually in the lounge. Behind me you can see the river. We're actually on the river, and I'm the only person up. There's 100 people on this ship, and I'm the only one up. Can you believe it? Well, that's okay. I don't mind that. I'm pleased to have this place to myself. Right. Shall we keep rolling along with some of your questions? Sharon, let me answer your question. Will peonies grow on the Sunshine Coast? Sharon, I don't think they're going to grow. They barely can deal with Perth's dry conditions. Western Australia, no problems at all. When you go to Queensland, you'd have to be in high country. I think it needs to be a really good quality soil, and Sunshine Coast tends to be quite sandy, so I'm not sure that it's going to work too well. Let's keep moving. Marie, let's have a look. Don't know where you are, Marie, so you need to let us know. That's very important, because I can answer your questions a little better if I do know. I'd like to know more about, I think it's orchids. You've been told to pick the flowers when they start to bloom, and it depends what orchid you've got too. I'd love to see a photograph, because I'm assuming that it's probably a Phalaenopsis orchid, a moth orchid. They're the ones that are most commonly found these days, but we are also right in the middle of Cymbidium orchid season. So those two are the most probably common, treated completely differently. I think for all of you that have got Phalaenopsis orchids, moth orchids, that are not flowering just at the moment, put them outside. It's the biggest thing ever, is to get them into some cool conditions for about 3 weeks. Bring them back inside and they'll start producing flowers. So there's a little tip there. As far as flowers picking, pick them. Don't be scared to pick them. If you do with those, you can cut to with Phalaenopsis orchids, the moth orchid, you can cut to a bud on the stem, take the top off so you've got flowers for a vase, but the bud will produce a new stem, and they will grow from that and produce more flowers. So you can do that. Honestly, I would leave them on the plant. I think they're just beautiful on the plant, and that's what I do. If it's Cymbidium orchids that you've got, different story. And Cymbids, they are best probably to pick the flowers. It won't hurt at all. All right, we are rolling along. There are a lot of questions starting to flow through. I should apologise because, as I mentioned, it is bright and early here in Portugal, but of course it's later in the day in Australia. But we did start a little earlier than we had intended previously, and that all gets down to time zones here. So I had to do this when I was able to actually to get to you before we head off to do some more filming, which we'll be doing in about actually it's 6:34, I should mention, in about an hour or so. So busy times over here. Now let me roll through your questions. So Marie, we talked about the orchids. Tracy would like to know about transplanting a blue kangaroo paw plant that's flowering. From what I've seen of the blues so far, they are a little more fragile probably than some of the mainstream. They can be split. There is no doubt about it. And so you can either transplant them from a pot and split them in half and have two, or alternatively, you could just transplant it into a larger pot. Pots are really good for these kangaroo paws. The other option, of course, is that you could plant them into a new spot in the garden. The answer is, can you do it now? Absolutely. So don't be scared, Tracy. They do actually transplant quite well. Carolina, okay. Oh, Melton in Victoria, thank you for sending this through. And you've sent us a photograph. Awesome. Help. My potted lemon tree is losing all its leaves, and I can see that it is struggling. And Carolina, I've got to tell you, it's all down to the nutrients. If you have a look at that, you see how big the root system is. It's contained within this pot. When it produces fruit, a tree like that could probably produce something along the lines of, I don't know, 10 fruit. Those fruit collectively will probably weigh the best part of, let's say, 4 to 5 kilos. All of that goodness is coming out of that soil. And if you take a look at it and you think about it, think, well, where's the extra coming for the next crop or to sustain and maintain leaf growth? And that's a bit of a challenge because it's not in the soil. You need to keep putting nutrients in. This is a hungry tree, and the cold weather has caused it to drop a bit of foliage. That's not an uncommon thing. The good news is you can fix this. And we talk about Troforte as a fertilizer, but it's fabulous for this kind of environment. So as a controlled release fertilizer, about, I'm going to say 50 grams, so it's about a handful, is going to sustain a lemon tree like this really, really well. It's probably, I'm probably putting it on the heavy side of feeding as well, but they would recommend, I think, around about an application every 3 to 4 months. I would suggest with a lemon in a pot like that maybe even every 2 months is probably most important to really get them going. No, Barbara, you're quite correct. Lemons don't weigh a kilo, but if you've got Eureka lemons, they're probably going to weigh 300 grams to 500 grams, depending on, you know, how big the size of the lemons are and how much moisture is in them. So, yeah. And there's a few people passing comments about lemons. It's been the last couple of weeks has been really heavy in sort of, you know, questions about lemons. It's because they do really struggle through the coldest parts of the year. Anyway, that's Carolina's. Look, just thank you for sending us a photograph because that really helps. Thank you for telling me where you're from because I understand the environment that the tree's in. So yeah, that makes a big difference. Candice Worth, I'm not sure where you're from again, Candice. I'm trying to grow Kwangdongs from hard shell seed. Had no luck so far sprouting the seeds. Any tips would be appreciated. There is an old-fashioned trick, Candice, which we used to, when I was growing plants in the nursery business, for anything that was a hard-shelled seed, we would do, and I think it's all you've got to do here, boiling water. So put your Kwangdong seeds into a jar or a tub, pour boiling water over the top of them, and then leave it. don't do anything with it for probably 24 hours. Then take the seeds out and plant them. They will all germinate. So it's the best way to get guangdongs to germinate. I've had great success. Now we've got an interesting one here. We've got somebody from Western Australia, Kale, Southern River, got a lemon tree at home, or at least we use them as lemons. They're sour, but they look like a mandarin. Oh, yeah. So take a look at that. All right, it's a good photograph too. Thanks, Kale. I love it because if you have a look at those, you'll see that it's not a lemon, it's a citron. And the reason you've got this sort of problem, I suppose, occurring is because this is the rootstock. It's not the lemon. The rootstock has taken over the plant, and it's producing this fruit that's true to the rootstock, but it's not very enjoyable. It's a bitter fruit. So yeah, it's a bit of a problem, I'm afraid. And the simple solution is to probably graft a new tree onto that rootstock. So cut the rootstock out, and when there's new growth, graft a new one on. And to be quite honest, you'll get multiple if you cut it right back down, you'll get multiple shoots come up. And the exciting thing with that is that you can actually graft into each of those shoots a different type of citrus. So you could have, I don't know, an orange, a lemon, a mandarin. There's basically no limit, to be quite honest. So it's a bit of a window of opportunity, maybe not such bad news as you might have thought. Okay, Leah, hello Leah. You tune in every week. What is the best time of the year to fertilise hippeastrum plants? Well, for all of us, I think they're dormant just at the moment. So you might see just a little bit of growth starting to appear, and as soon as you do see that, it's the best time to get in and give them a feed. It's a really good way to go. And as far as food goes, always go for one of those flower promoting fertilizers. So you're looking for something that's for flowering plants. Sometimes you can't find something specifically for that, but you will find it for fruiting plants. It's okay. It's good news, because basically it just means that you're in a situation where you're going to encourage, I suppose, very good flowering, and that's a key here. All right, I'm just working my way through all your questions. Christine Rankin, hello Christine. I'm wondering if I can add something to break up sand that has had bentonite clay add to. Oh dear. Once it dries, it becomes very hard and I can't dig into it. It's all okay when wet. You're in Stirling in Western Australia as well. Hubby has added it and you're not impressed. No, look, I'm not a huge fan of bentonite clay. Bentonite does get very, very hard. It's the same sort of clay that you'll see in kitty litter. It absorbs, highly absorbent, so suck all the moisture in. But when it does eventually dry and release it, it's rock hard, and it's not good for the soil. There's not a lot you can do, I'm afraid. Probably trying to break it up a little bit by adding something like gypsum is going to help, and you probably want to apply it at about 1 kilo per square metre. So I would get the hubby onto that one, and that will improve structure a bit, but it's not going to solve all your problems. Julie Johnson, I'm not sure where you are, Julie, but you've not had a lot of success keeping veggies, herbs alive. Oh, no, you're in Perth, so it's very hot, dry conditions during the summer. And this is a really good question. I really like this because you've been planting in pots and grow bags so you can move them when the weather gets too hot into cooler areas. That's a good strategy. It's a smart strategy because in really extreme conditions, the peak of summer, you'll find most of your plants that are producing fruit or veg will go into a form of dormancy, if you like. They basically shut down because the conditions are just too extreme. And that's the end of the productivity for a period of time. This is the time to, I suppose, let the soil rest is probably the best way to think about it. You think about farming, and farmers have a period of time where they let the soil rest. Sometimes they'll let a paddock rest for a year or maybe even 2. So my suggestion is that maybe you don't worry about the peak of summer, but you do look at adding some goodness through the winter and through the spring, so that you do replace the nutrients that are in the soil. And it's a very important thing. I often say this, but home gardening, we are the most intensive farmers of all. So we have to be really clever with regards to what we're doing to replenish the nutrients in the soil that are lost as a consequence of plants growing, and that's a really big challenge. It's great to have people tuning in from all over the world. We've got some great ones coming through. I will keep on. Yes, I will keep on Australia just at the moment because Lee Verrill is in Brisbane. Hello, Lee. Great to have you join us. You've got a grafted mulberry tree. It's about 1 metre tall. There is a section at the top that's about 4 inches in length. All the new buds have been eaten by something. Oh, that's not a good thing. The rest of the bush has new leaves and fruit. So it's pretty early. I'm assuming, I suppose in Brisbane it's warmer conditions, so they will be ahead of the game compared to some of the southern states. But whatever's eating that foliage off the top, it's quite unusual because it is the top of the plant. Now, if it was a rat, for example, it'd be more likely that it'd be eating things from the bottom. So you'd have to assume that it's some kind of caterpillar, I would suggest, or, and this is a possibility, grasshoppers, because they will also land on the top and eat their way down. What I would be suggesting you do is you go out at night. I'm just having a look because I think there's a second part to this question. The question here, the second part is, and it's what I was alluding to, go out at night, have a bit of a look. You will see, even if it's a rat, you'll probably see rat activity at night. But more importantly, if it's a grub, they tend to be active at night as well, or a grasshopper. So I would suggest that you cut the top of the plant, that where nothing's actually growing, remove that. It'll stimulate and trigger further growth below, and you'll end up with a great result anyway. But you do need to keep your eye on this because that could be quite problematic. All right, let's keep moving along because we've got lots of questions flowing through. Elba Taranto, you're in Sydney. Can I transplant conifer trees? They're in pots at the moment. Well, transplanting conifers that are potted, absolutely. You're basically planting out into the garden. So no problem at all. They will transplant quite well. Transplanting from a garden soil to another garden place or even into a pot can be quite problematic with conifers. And if you're going to do it, you really need to do it when things are very wet and moist because if they've got root damage, they will set back. And if they've got root damage and they go into dry conditions, they'll set back and they won't recover. It's pretty hard to get them through those sorts of conditions. So, yeah, plant them out, absolutely. Probably a little bit of sea salt in the soil around the outside, and you should be happy. I think that's going to... Right, and I am working my way through all of your questions just to make sure that I do not miss anything. Hopefully, anyway, Elba, that answers your question. Spacey or Space? Vanevsky. I'm not sure where you are, though. You haven't told me, but this is probably fairly general. How do I stop birds from digging in my garden bed mulch? It's an unusual thing. They're obviously digging for something, and I suspect that it's probably worms, more likely, that they're doing it for that reason. Now, the ones that would do that, mudlarks, of course, magpies, they tend to be the ones that are most active. And if my chooks ever escape, which they did recently and did a fair bit of damage to all the leafy vegetables, they love fresh, obviously fresh foliage, they will also scratch in the garden beds. How do you stop them? Do you really want to stop them? Are they doing any damage? That's probably the bigger question. It doesn't hurt them to get the odd worm, and along the way they might take out curl grubs and also a number of the other insects that can be problematic. I wouldn't stop them. I would encourage them. I don't think it's a bad thing. Anyway, if you're getting damage, send me through a little bit more information and I'll try and expand on that and let us know where you are. Now, Mel Smedley, you're in northeast Victoria. Is it too late to plant dahlia bulbs? Well, actually, it's just about the time to start planting dahlia bulbs. We're not quite there. We're obviously, we were talking to Chloe Van Berkel earlier on, and her dad David's out digging them at the moment, so they're all dormant. But we're not that far away from them starting to produce eyes, the first buds, and then they'll start to be planted again. So we're probably about a month or so away. So don't rush into doing that just at the moment. I've got mine all sitting in trays in the shed, and we're going to plant them out. So hopefully, October. We'll see. I'll let you know anyway, because there'll be a special offer, I'm sure, from the team at Garden Express, so that if you're looking for some different varieties, you know what you're going to get. Right. Deb Doolan, you're in the Sunshine Coast. Love that part of the world in Queensland. When's the best time to spray for bindi? Is there a spray that I can use on stinging nettle? Ooh, it's all around the playground, and we need to... you got the grandkids coming in. Look, you know what? Stinging nettle has become quite a problem, and it's one of these things where it was a bit of a... Well, it is a significant weed, and certainly in places like Europe, you really do see it, and it pretty much shuts down the ability for anybody to walk through that area with shorts on, because it will really hurt. That's something I would be knocking down with a total weed killer, and there's some really good ones out there now that are naturally based, I suppose. That's probably the best way to refer to them. And they tend to be almost instant knockdown. So they're using a pelargonic acid base, and that pretty much will act before your very eyes, and it's very effective when it comes to stinging nettle. So that's pretty cool. As far as I should say, you did ask the question about bindi. In the southern states, it's probably not, at this point, germinated and growing strong enough for you to bother spraying a weed and feed over it, because that usually will take them out. But if you are in Sydney North, and the same on the west coast, probably Geraldton North, now is the time to be spraying them. So, it's not something you want to wait until it's matured, because unfortunately, that's when it'll be sticking in your toes, and you don't want that. You do need to treat it now. All right, Margaret Best, Upper York Peninsula, South Australia. Thank you, Margaret, for letting me know. We're on a couple of acres that used to be farmland, and we'd like to grow some lawn. What's the best type of grass? And I suppose, what are my thoughts with regards to the area you're in when it comes to growing grass? Well, first thing, preparation, very important. It depends on what you're using the grass for. So when you think about lawns, think about purpose for the lawn. If it's something that you want to sit on, that you just want a nice, soft, lush lawn that you will sit out and enjoy, literally come in contact with it physically, fine leaf grasses are always the best, I think. Now, that could be any of the couches. There's some really good ones out there. Wintergreen's a great example. Windsor Green was a variety that I quite liked. It was very, very hardy, not as common these days. But if you're looking for a really good look and you're willing to mow it on a regular basis, some of the buffaloes, they're just fantastic. They really have come a long way, buffalo grasses, and they really do give you that lovely spread across the top of the soil, and a beautiful dark green colour. And again, varieties like Palmetto, Sir Walter, they're all pretty darn good. So it depends what you're going to use it for, I suppose. That's the most important thing. All right, we've got a lot of questions. Shaylee's telling me off. I'm waffling a bit, so we've got about 7 or 8 minutes to go. So I'll belt through these as quickly as I can. All right, let's have a look. Let's have a look here. Jeanette Miller, hello. You're in Pingelly. That's in Western Australia, in the south. Just a beautiful part of the world. We're back to lemon trees. Okay, my lemon tree's got beautiful lemons, but when cut open, they seem a bit sandy and a little dry. The feaster most, I'm not sure what that means. but not much juice. So okay, so this is a common problem, and it's caused by dry conditions, and then sometimes too wetter conditions. More often than not, it's actually dry conditions. So it's a stress on the tree as it's producing fruit. Of course, so the winter producing variety shouldn't be in that situation. So if you're seeing that coming through with fruit at the moment, what I would be recommending you do is getting a wetting agent, and around the drip zone of the tree, that's on the outside edge of the canopy, I would be soaking it with a wetting agent, really giving it a good soak. It suggests that the roots have been stressed at some point, and that's what's going on. So that's why you get fruit that's sometimes dry in the middle. Hopefully, I've helped you with your problem there. All right, let's have a quick look here. Samantha, you're in Vic Park again. We're getting a lot of WA questions, which is great. That's fantastic. I have a small garden and want to grow some more veggies on my veranda. Part sun in the morning, full hot sun in the afternoon. I can be very bad at watering my plants at times and need flowers that tolerate my poor watering skills. Do you have any recommendations? So there's no indestructible flowers as such, or vegetables. They all require watering. It's a really important thing. What I would thoroughly suggest to you is that you do take a bit of a look at one of those self-watering pots. Certainly, even if you've got normal pots, a tray, popping a tray underneath. So when you water and the water flows through, it's captured in the tray, and you reduce the waste of that water because it will flow out the bottom of the pot. If you do that and it's sitting in that tray, through capillary action, that's the mass of the soil drawing, almost through gravity, drawing the water back up into the soil, every bit of water that you've applied to the plant will end up coming back up to the roots. So that's going to help. There's also those the little spikes. You screw them on water bottles and you pop them into the top of the pot, and they'll slowly allow water to drip in over a week or so. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But are there any plants that don't require water? The answer is no, and particularly with edible fruiting plants, etc. You do want to make sure that you are watering on a regular basis. Let's have a bit of a look here. Jenny Ed, hello, you're in Scarborough. I've planted an avocado from seed, and it had 2 shoots, so you kept the best one, and now it's doing well, but wondering how long it will take to produce fruit. So it's an interesting thing. Certainly the mainstream gardening, horticultural, if you're listening to radio, etc., they will tell you that you're best to have a grafted fruit tree, whether it be avocado or anything else. And the reason for that is because it'll always be true to type. So it's exactly what was grafted onto it. So that's a guarantee. Second thing is they do produce fruit a lot quicker. That's the only way to put it. It's just a faster process. When you're planting a seedling like this, something like 7 to 10 years is not an unusual period of time before you start seeing fruit really start to form. So it can be earlier, but you're probably talking 7 years, I would suggest. So hopefully that helps. Vanessa Love, you're in the Sunshine Coast. I purchased some mini capsicums from a local farmers market and decided to keep the seeds. I planted them, sprouted nicely. I was wondering if these will eventually produce capsicums. They're nice little baby seedlings right now. How long will it take? Well, capsicums are obviously a summer crop. You are in nice warm conditions now on the Sunshine Coast. Keep the water up to them. They will grow, they will produce fruit, and they should be true to what the parent was. So they'll be very, very similar, certainly to the mini capsicums that you took the seed from. So no problems at all. Just remember, capsicums are a fruiting plant, so they're not a vegetable as such. So don't feed them with something that's going to generate a lot of foliage. What you want to do is be treating them just like you would with a fruit tree. Something's going to encourage the flowering process and the fruit production. So hopefully that helps. We've had a lot of questions coming in from the Gold Coast today. It's fantastic. Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, terrific to have people from Queensland joining us and playing such a big role. One of those people is somebody who supports us enormously, and I'm very grateful for it. Glenn Miller, hello. It's great to have you joining in with us and specifically asking a question. You want to get more flowers on your frangipani. Is there a benefit to pruning it? Read your travels. You will have years of fun sorting through your wonderful photos. Actually, I'm crazy with photos. I take a lot of photos. So if you're following Explore TV at the moment on Facebook, you'll be seeing everywhere we're going. It is crazy beautiful stuff. We've done some amazing stories. So yeah, thanks for that. I'm kind of reliant on Facebook being my little reminder of where I was last year. That's something that I do like about that particular application. It's very good. Now, the primary question was, I suppose, pruning your frangipani. You prune your frangipani, you will impact the trees flowering. There's no doubt about that. In the first year after pruning. The second year, it should produce lots and lots of flowers. A little trick, however, if you want to get a lot of flowering on your frangipani, and this goes for a lot of fruit trees as well, better fruit, sulfate of potash. It's rare that I will recommend one particular element to add in, but sulfate of potash really does trigger significant flower production when it comes to frangipani. So hopefully that will help. And we've got lots of questions flying in, and we've just hit the hour. So I'll try and get through the rest of these. If not, we'll be answering them next week for you. Christine Ariel, I hope I got that right. Christine, wandering dew, what's the best way to eradicate it? It is literally spraying it out, Christine, and you need to be very vigilant for a period of time. It is a really annoying weed, to be quite honest, and it does spread fast. So you want one of those foliage contact sprays that you can spray over the top. And I talked about pelargonic acid earlier on. It comes in the form of a whole bunch of different types. It is absolutely fantastic for taking that particular weed out. So here we go. I have got one more. Kang Liao, you are in Perth, and I know you can because you do ask questions, you do participate quite regularly, which is fantastic. Let's have a bit of a look here. I'd like to know if I should remove all the flower heads on my mango tree as we're still in winter. Thank you. Well, Kang, it's a bit difficult because if you do that, you're going to impact your fruit production. So it's a strange season, and I know what you're saying here, but you're going to have to hope that the flowers, as they open, will do so in a period where it's not super wet, because if it's too wet, you won't get pollination of the flowers, and the fruit will not appear. At the same time, if you pick the flowers off, it's a bit of a problem. So yeah, I'm not sure what advice I can give you, mate. I would suggest to you that you leave them on, and hopefully, as I said to you, we end up with some drier conditions than we have had, because it's been quite a challenging period of time, that's for sure. All right, let's do one more question, and then I'll do the rest next week, I promise you. Jeanette Courtney, hello. What can I plant under two large trees? So you've got full shade. Of course, when you've got big trees, they do shade everything else out underneath them. So generally, large leafy foliage plants are the best things to put into that sort of environment. They're not the only option. There are certainly, if you want flowers and so on, and you're moving into the warmer season, and you're not just yet, but when you do, things like impatiens can be very, very good. The foliage plants, everything from philodendrons right through to even the ZZ plant is a great one in dark conditions, and it'll work outdoors as well as indoors. Hopefully that's a little bit of advice I can give you that will help. Now, first of all, let's go to our $50 Garden Express winner, Julie Johnson. Love your question about growing things in pots and grow bags. Great way to produce edible plants, and now's the time to be planting up if you want to do it at home as well. So great, congratulations, you've got $50 voucher coming your way. You can go shopping at Garden Express. There's a huge range of things at the moment in the Garden Express catalogue, and that will go a long way with some of your favourite plants. The $250 Treforte code word. So remember how we did this last season? it was the idea of going to Troforte's Facebook page, liking it, ideally sharing it with a friend, and putting in the code word. And the code word this week is, are you ready? Bloom. That's it. Well done, Shaylee. Well, our timing is very, very good. It is Bloom. So put that down, like them, share it with your friends. That's a great opportunity. And of course, you'll be chosen over the next week or so, or somebody will be chosen over the next week or so to win that amazing $250 Treforte hamper. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all of that sort of stuff. Did you catch the Garden Gurus last week? We had our first episode on Channel 9, and in New South Wales and Queensland, because of the rugby, we're on 9 Life at the same time. Give us your feedback. What do you think? We've got lots of stories coming your way. We really do want to know what you're looking to learn more about, so we can share that. A lot of innovation in the garden industry at the moment. So you can see a lot of really cool new ideas, some brilliant plants. We've got some incredible plants coming through the system at the moment, and we will be revealing those progressively throughout the season. Some of them are edible, most of them are flowering, and they're just gorgeous. And I'm getting a lot of people saying thank you and thanks for joining us. I will talk to you a lot more next week. I'm still going to be over here in Europe. I've still got another week and a half, I think it is, before I'm back. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be doing 2 more over here or 1, but certainly I will be in Europe. So our times should be the same. Shaylee's telling me we'll be back next week at 2 p.m. Western Standard Time, which will be 4 p.m. excuse me, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So we will definitely be back, and she's confirming I will be still in Europe for another 2 weeks. So I will be coming back, and I'll try and give you a whole bunch of different plants to think about growing based on the trends that I'm seeing over here. And I am keeping my eye on the ground. I'm not just doing the travel show. Thanks so much for joining me. I think that's all I've got for you today. But if you do want to know anything more, of course, always keep your eye on our Facebook page. And if you're looking for a good some good information, then I would recommend that you do check out our website. It's a great resource. There's all sorts of videos and there's all sorts of fact sheets, etc. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Trevor Cochrane. I will look forward to seeing you next week when we do another Garden Gurus Live Facebook session. Thanks for joining me.